Welcome to the Date Forever podcast. Keep your relationship fueled up with strategies discovered by couples and experts. Because at Fuel Collective, we believe better relationships will equal a better world. You are about to discover specific insights and tools that cost little or nothing to implement to help you date forever. And now, here are your hosts, a couple who always have a half-packed suitcase and a date night in the calendar, Sammy and Nathan Yeager.
Hello and welcome to Date Forever. In this week's episode, we're chatting about unpacking what sex and relationships mean to you, looking at the monogamy norm and exploring conscious non-monogamy, stepping into the sex party scene and what it can do for your relationship, and finding out and understanding your erotic blueprints. But before we dive into that, Sammy, what's been fueling you up this week?
I had such a fun night out on Friday night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I had two of my besties visiting from South Australia, so visiting Sydney. And we had such a great day. I took the day off on Friday and I picked one of them up from where they were staying, the other one from the airport. Then we went for lunch and got manicure, pedicure. Then we spent all afternoon kind of hanging out and getting ready. And then we went to a drag and dine show with another friend of mine. And then we went dancing. And it was just so fun.
Yeah,
so fun.
Yeah, how amazing.
What about you, Nath? What fueled you up this last week?
Mine's a bit of a slower pace. It's a habit that I've been getting back into as I've been commuting to work and things like that. And that's really just taking the opportunity to read some books and to learn a little bit more. So just been reading a couple of really good books recently.
What have you been reading?
I've been reading Sapiens.
Oh, yeah, that's a goodie. I read that a few years ago.
Yeah. So it delves into the history of humankind. And yeah, it's just really interesting, learning about our past and learning about a few concepts and a few things I didn't know about us.
I'm a huge reader.
Yeah.
I love reading.
Yeah, Audible is definitely my platform or my method of choice.
Yeah.
My consumption
modality.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. So it's probably been maybe 4 or 5 years now, maybe a little even longer, that I've had a read at least 2 books a month every month.
Yeah.
24 books a year.
And I was trying to do half that this year. Yeah.
1 a month?
Yeah. I'm a little bit slower than you.
I'm actually ahead of my progress for this year so far.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty well on track, so I'm doing okay. But now, here's this week's guest.
Today we've got Sarah Jane Liebelt joining us. Sarah is a sex, love and relationship coach who helps women safely explore their desires, kinks and how they can consciously create deeply connected and exciting sex lives and fulfilling relationships. Welcome to the show, Sarah Jane.
Oh, hello. Thank you. I'm so excited. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, it's amazing to have you here.
Thank you. I'm nervous and I'm excited.
No need to be nervous. So we know that anyone who ends up in the sex, love and relationship space has a story of how they ended up there. So tell us, how did you become a coach?
Oh, gosh. Okay, so let me give you the shorter version just because I could tell this story for 45 minutes and then that's all we'd talk about. So I became single for the first time in my adult life about 3.5 years ago. So my whole 20s, I was in a relationship with one man. And then I moved to the UK from Australia. So 6 months I was single. And then I met another man and then we spent 5 years together. And then that ended really badly. But I found myself single and I didn't realize I've just spent my whole adult life with other people in this joint situation. And then for the first time I was like, wow, let's go date. What's this going to be like? So it was literally about 2 years of dating, exploration, sexploration, and really seeing what came up for me in terms of conditioning of, I can't sleep with him too soon. What will he think of me if I say this about sex? But then even what do I like about sex? And then this conditioning of, oh, I just meant to be in another relationship, aren't I? Rather than, what would it be like to spend time by myself? And then through all of this dating that was going on, I was having a brilliant time, by the way, loving all the apps and so many stories. And they weren't all great stories, but they were great stories. Got some horrendous ones, I can tell you. And through that process, my best friend said, oh my God, we need to have a podcast about this. And so I was like, okay, yeah, cool. I can talk about my dating adventures and all that kind of stuff. But it really sort of transitioned into coaching and more education for people around like, this is what's going on in my life. And if it's going on for me, then maybe it's going on for you. And here's some support about how to deal with it. So my best friend and I did this podcast for about a year. And through that, I really started to get into monogamy. Is this for me? Why can't I just have sex when I want to have sex? And if I meet him and love him on the first date, then why can't I do that and just jump into bed? Why do I have to feel a way about that? And so then I really started feeling this pull towards sex coaching, relationships coaching, and really just freeing women up of shame, freeing people up of shame, but particularly women, the shame that we all experience around my sexual desires, and then not even knowing what our sexual desires are. So I think it was last year, so about a year ago, I retrained as a sex, love and relationships coach and just really started that journey of coaching people in that aspect. Yeah.
So what were you doing professionally before that?
So personal trainer. So I used to be a social worker. I did that for about 6 years and then I retrained as a personal trainer, and I still do that sometimes. I still do that now, but even more so the coaching side of things as well. So it's always been very people oriented, always like people connection, wanting to support people. And really just over time, as I've got to know myself and accepted some of the beautiful things about me, that I've really started to hone down. Okay, I love people. I love spending time with people. I love being flexible. Okay, but I want to talk about these things. This is what's important to me in the world. This is what's important as far as how I can support people in the world. So really kind of niching it down, further down into the actual thing that I really want to talk about.
Yeah. So in that period where you did, I guess, find yourself single and we're going through a bit of an exploration phase, like what were the big takeaways that you learnt during that phase of, I guess, relearning who you were as a person?
Yeah. Oh, wow. So many. One big thing that I learnt about myself was, at the time, I had a real mistrust of men. And here I am trying to build a relationship. And at that point, it was very male focused. Like I want a relationship with a man. And I kept sort of coming up against this icky feeling, especially if I really liked the person. The ickier that kind of feeling got, like the more mistrust would come out. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? So I really had to get to the root of, why am I not trusting men? And the more that they're attractive to me or that I want to be with them, the more I resist trusting them. So that was a huge one and a game changer for me once I figured out where does that come from and how does it show up in my life. And just to know that's just something that I now deal with as part of my humanity, my machinery. So although I'm better at catching it now and it looks like different things now, it's still always something that I will have to be mindful of. Oh, you've done this thing. I feel a way about it. Is that because my default is to not trust you? So that was a really big thing. Another big thing was it doesn't have to look the way that we think that it does or we're told that it does. So almost always, I mean, I live in London, very vibrant city. It's easy to it's easy for some people to date on apps. Some people really enjoy that experience. And I always found I would often have at least 3 men when I could I could see myself with you. But then I really like these other 2 as well. Why do I have to choose? I don't like that. And then it felt really, am I being dishonest and all these kinds of things? But then I'm not being true to myself if I feel like I just have to choose one. So one of the biggest lessons was figure out what feels right for me and then take actions in line with that. But also be willing to, if I find out what is right for me and it's different from what everyone else seems to be doing, that's okay too, but I'm going to have to deal with some feelings around that as well. And I would just say, just have fun with it. Don't put pressure on it. That was a really big thing for me. When it got too pressurized, it was like not fun anymore. So as long as it's still fun, don't worry so much about the label and all that kind of stuff, because that's a big thing as well, right? Like, where's this going? Are you going to be my boyfriend? Are we going to get married? Yeah. What about let's just have the best freaking time together for as long as it lasts and invest in myself and invest in you and just see what happens. Have an adventure together.
Yeah, there is this language of like, if you don't get into a relationship and die, then it's a failed relationship. And I just think that language
Isn't that crazy? Like
yeah.
our one measure of success is if like you loved each other all the way to the end that someone died.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Crazy.
And we're in such a brilliant yet tricky time in the world right now, because like that would have been our grandparents, right? Got married at like, I don't know, 18, let's call it, because technically then you're adult. Maybe it was slightly earlier. And I remember my grandparents never spent a night away from each other until they were well into later in life. Like, while on one hand, that's a lovely idea, on the other hand, like, I don't know, man, that might lend itself to
codependent.
Right? Yes. And stale. Absolutely. But yeah, and then also that perceived illusion of safety, right? Like, well, we're married and we're together all the time. That does not guarantee that this relationship is going to keep going, right? Us having a baby together or a dog together, a house together does not guarantee a healthy, thriving relationship. Yeah. Or being married for 60 years. That's not a measure of success, really. Did I love you? Did I love wholeheartedly? Did I open my heart to you? Did we co-create something together? Did we have a brilliant time? For me, that's a measure of success within a relationship.
Yeah, I love the way that you framed that. So, Sarah Jane, you mentioned that you started having some question marks around this shape of monogamy. And I want to know, like, was there something that you read or a podcast you listened to? Like, what was the first thing that like really hit you and you were like, I have more questions now?
Interesting. Yeah, sorry.
Was there one? It's okay if there wasn't one thing. It may have been a series of things, but there was something that you went from monogamy's the way to maybe there's another option. Oh, I'm curious to know what that was.
That is a brilliant question, Sammy. Thank you for asking that. And it was exactly that. It was a series of different things. And it was a series of me thinking, I don't want, because it was never monogamy as the way. It wasn't an active choice. It was, that's the thing that you have to do, right? And that's how monogamy exists to us in the world as humans right now. It's the default. It's the norm. It's the acceptable. And that's also why I'm kind of like resisting this umbrella term of ethical non-monogamy, because by putting the word ethical in there, it denotes that otherwise any non-monogamy is unethical, right? Like, or that monogamy as it is the right way.
And is always ethical.
Is always ethical without being called ethical monogamy.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure there is unethical monogamy out there.
Oh, there's so much.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm like playing around with the idea of like conscious non-monogamy, right? Like I'm choosing this. This is like something that I'm learning about and I'm discovering, and it's a lifelong discovery. So this idea of like conscious non-monogamy kind of came around. I was having this series of, I really like this person. Okay, I'm going to stop seeing all the others, because in total truth, there was a lot of others. I had very lovely situations set up. And then I would meet one person. Okay, well, let's just be exclusive is what we say over here. And then there was a disconnect, and especially with my ability to communicate back then, there was a disconnect between what I wanted from that person and the relationship and what they wanted. Right. So I wanted someone who we would communicate about things. We would share feelings. We would talk about when things weren't going well. You would make time to see me in your week. We're all busy, but you're making time to see me, and I'm doing the same in return. And I was encountering all these relationships where it was like, as soon as we were exclusive, yeah, we'll see each other when we see each other. Or like, how's your day going? Good. And like no real kind of like development or intention in the relationship. Yeah. And it's not about where it's going, but it's about, we want to have this great time together. What does that look like for us? And so I was like, what the hell? I've got all these great situations. Now I meet someone and they're not meeting any of my needs anymore. And yet you think that I'm going to still be monogamous, right? So I was having all of these experiences. And one day I got drunk on my friend's couch and just said, I've had it with these boys. I'm just going to have a harem, 3 separate men, 3 children to all the different ones. And they're just going to be like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is my day to myself. Right? Because I was just not getting my needs met in any other way, or in any way that I knew. So I went to, there's got to be a different way. And once I opened my mind to that, then on my former podcast, we had someone who was in an open relationship come on, and then another person. And it just started opening my mind to how would this actually work? Like if I'm a woman and there's feelings, and what conversations would I need to kind of have? And then in January last year, I was seeing someone exclusively, and the same thing happened. Yeah, there was no what I would call intentionality. And I was like, I've had enough of this. And in all honesty, I slept with someone else while I was still seeing this man. So I cheated. And that was the first time I'd ever done that. And I expected to feel horrendous.
Non-ethical.
Unethical. I was unethical. Yes, Sammy. And I expected to feel horrendous. However,
I shouldn't laugh because you're sharing your feelings.
No, it's fine.
You had a moment.
Yep. Well, it was about 2 weeks of like preparation. Can I do this? What does this mean about me as a person? La, 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 la. And then I just said, you know what? I'm going to do this thing because it feels okay to me. And while I'm not recommending that people go and do that, it was just very interesting to have the experience of the world tells me if I cheat, I'm going to feel shame and feel awful and all these things. But actually what it gave me clarity on was sleeping with someone else when you have a partner is not bad. It's that I haven't shared it with them and they haven't consented. Yeah. And it also highlighted to me, because then I wasn't any different to how I showed up with either of the men, right? I had it in my brain, well, if I really like this person, then it's going to take away from the like feelings of someone else. That's not true. Those feelings can expand, right? And I can like you just as much as I like you or love you and love you. So I was like, wow, okay, there really is something to this. Let's explore. So then I read things like The Ethical Slut, which is a really, really great book, and just started like labeling myself as polyamorous and ethical non-monogamous and sharing that with people to then start a conversation. Whenever I would date in the future after that, I would say, just so you know, I'm ethically non-monogamous. And that's just how the evolution kind of happened.
How did it feel trying on that label the first few times?
Ooh, you know, it's funny. The more I liked someone, the harder it was to say. Because in my head, you're not going to accept that I'm not going to be monogamous with you. Therefore, you won't want to see me or date me. The less I liked someone, the easier it was. Like, I'm letting you know I'm not monogamous. Okay, cool. So yeah, it was interesting to see what else kind of came up. It was clunky sometimes and then like super easy other times.
Did you find that as you embraced that identity or that part of yourself or that label, however you want to, whatever language you want to wrap around it, did you find that you were then attracting more people who also identified with that kind of desire?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think because I'm quite just open in general in my personal life, it lent itself to, I've got some really great friendships now of people who are polyamorous, people who are kinky. My primary partner, he fully like gets it, and he's had his own past experiences where he's operated in those worlds as well. So yes, it really did open up avenues to new people that didn't exist in my life before. But then it was a great tool for discovering, is this person on my vibe? Because if I said, look, I'm not monogamous, or, oh, I like kink events sometimes, and they're like, oh no, or they get a bit funny, you're a cool human and all that, but maybe we're not going to see each other. So it was a really great tool to kind of discover, are you my person? Are you not my person?
Yeah, it's kind of like any of those character traits that can be polarizing, whether or not it's like, oh, I'm vegan, oh, I'm a smoker, or I really don't want kids, or like any of those kinds of things that like, they're not weird. They bring your values right up to the front really early on. So you mentioned in there, I was going to say you referred to that dating period as like 2 years. So I knew that it must have ended. So you're with a current partner. You've got what you referred to him as your primary partner. So I know that there's like hierarchical language, and some people prefer to use like, I don't know, more general language, or refer to the person that they live with as like a nesting partner in open and polyamorous relationships. But tell us a little bit about that primary relationship.
So we met on Tinder. Met on Tinder at the start of last summer. So probably like May time. Yeah, maybe about a year ago. So I used to use Tinder, Hinge, and Bumble. They were kind of my 3 online apps. I would now use Field for more polyamorous, more sort of kink-related. Field is a really great app for that. So I was on those 3 apps and not really on Tinder so much. So Tinder has this great functionality where you can share a profile with someone else. So what I would do with my best friend is, oh, this one would be great for my best friend. It's not for me, but let me send Paul's profile onto Jane, whoever, yeah? And so my friend sent me the profile of another man who said, I have a partner, non-monogamous, looking for exploration with another woman, right? And I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I had my friend supporting me in this exploration. So while I'm on Tinder, I said yes to that person. And then the very next person who popped up is my now primary partner. And I thought, well, I'm on here. He looks cute. Let's say yes to him as well.
Matt.
And what I loved about him was it was very clear, even from the text conversation, the way he would respond, how quickly he would respond. It was very clear in my mind that he was interested in me. Yeah, so he was making this real effort to get to know me, to share with me and ask questions and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, wow, this is really easy. It's lovely. When we met, I was like, not sure I'm feeling the vibe. Yeah. So it was quite easy for me to say, just so you know, I'm not monogamous at the moment. May never be. Might be again. Just trying it on. Right. Because I wasn't really invested. And he's like, okay, cool. I was like, oh, okay. And I felt really accepted. And that created more interest in him. Like, now you're this curious human who might accept this weird thing about me. And in this picnic, chilling out, all the things. And he was sitting very close to me. I didn't really want him to touch me, but he just kind of put his hand on mine or something. And I was like, oh, wow, there was something energetic that just happened. Yeah. And I still couldn't get over my head talk around it. I'm not really sure. But I thought there's enough here. I'm just going to give him a try. Yeah. And then I wouldn't say this has happened too often to me, but when we finally did properly kiss, I was just like, wow, I don't know who this human is, but we're meant to be in this exchange together. We're meant to be doing this thing together. And it was beautiful for the first 6 months. It was lovely. It was amazing. And then life has happened. And we're now in a situation where I'm going to call it, we're taking a breath. Because what I'm really discovering is we're two different humans, and I'm a Libra and he's an Aries. Okay. For anyone who speaks that language, you'll know that they're really great for each other because the lessons they supply or allow really allow for self-actualization. But it's those lessons that make the relationship so difficult if you don't have the tools, if you're not actively trying to work on things and figure things out. So that's another real great example of why is it so important to know yourself? Yeah, because I know these things about me and I know these things about him and I know why he does the things he does and I know why the things I do. So we're just in a space now where I've said, you know what, let's just get some distance from each other. When we're in this thing that's tricky and hard, what I need is space to be in my own thoughts and to be in my own energy and to not be worried about how am I going to make you happy and all those kinds of things. So the intention is in a couple weeks or a month or so, we're going to come back together and have a new conversation from a new space of fresh eyes, putting the hurt down, processing our own stuff and getting clear on what do we want this to look like in moving forward in terms of not like where are we going, but how do I want to show up as a partner and how do I want my partner to show up? And it's cool if you don't want to or can't or whatever and vice versa, but maybe we don't need to continue then. And what's that going to look like? Or if you do want to and I want to, what is the work going to be required that we're both going to have to put in to make that happen?
Yeah. So is this like your first longer term open relationship?
Yeah.
And it's been open from the beginning?
From the beginning, yeah. There was a couple of months last year where I was considering closing it and kind of did that by default because, I love that you've asked this question, Sammy. Thank you so much because I think we often hear people talk about non-monogamy and polyamory and they always sound so like they've got it sorted, right? Like they always sound like, wow, how did you do that? And I've got this person, this relationship and all these kinds of things. And my experience is, and I believe the truth of it is tricky, right? Especially if it's something that you're doing for the first time because it's non-conventional. You don't have that many role models and there's a fuck ton of feelings, right?
So many feelings.
Yeah. Like I would say, I remember talking to my partner once, I like a good sex party. I like a good kink party. And I was saying to him last summer, I'm going to these sex parties and I want to go by myself and I want to play with whoever I feel like playing with at the time. Is that okay for you? And his eyes kind of welled up. And just like any human, he's processing emotions. But to me, I was like, oh my God, I've hurt him. I'm a terrible human. I'm hurting this person that I say that I love. How can I possibly do this? But I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and I wanted to experience what I wanted to experience. And each time I would do it and then have to talk to him about it, there was more of this guilt and shame for me that I had to deal with. And at a period last year, I was like, I just don't want to deal with those feelings anymore. And it masqueraded for me as maybe I'm just meant to be monogamous. Yeah, but actually it was just really fucking hard to deal with my humanity and deal with the high level of communication that is required of a healthy, non-monogamous relationship.
Yeah. And I guess it's not just the feelings of yourself and your partner. There's all these other people involved in it too. And so it opens the spectrum even further.
Absolutely, yeah. And what do they want from it? What do I want from it? How do I kind of communicate all of this sort of stuff? Yeah, so many feelings.
And I think that's something that we don't really talk about too, is that whether or not a relationship is open or closed or non-monogamous, monogamish, whatever language you want to use to describe the relationship or the agreement that you have with another person, that's not a fixed state, and it doesn't have to be a fixed state. I think we're allowed to go through seasons of our relationship looking and feeling and behaving a certain way, and that doesn't mean it has to be that way forever. So I think that's always an interesting conversation, because another couple that we've had on the show, for the most part, had an open relationship. During the time that they had their children, closed their relationship because their primary relationship just needed more of them to be there to keep it healthy, happy, and thriving. So, Sarah Jane, I want to go back to the sex parties.
Don't we all?
Tell me about the first one that you went to and how that kind of came about.
Oh, Lord. The first one I went to, oh my God, it was a cracker of an experience, Sammy. So this came about, I've always been quite open sexually, especially when I've been left to my own devices. When I've been in relationships, what I've learned about myself is, again, Libra, want other people to be happy. I put my partner's needs well above my own. Okay. And then I get resentful because I'm not getting my needs met. So I was in my last relationship, so the one that ended just over 3 years ago. When we first met, I was being all big and bad and all this kind of stuff. And I had an interest in sex parties, but in being big and bad, I was like, we should go to a sex party together. Let's just do it. And then he was like, would you? I would love that. I was like, yeah, of course. Cool. No problem. In my head,
you're trying to be the cool girl.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Trying to be cool.
I'm chill.
Trying to be the awesome girlfriend. Exactly. Yeah, I'm fine with that. And at that point, I was so disconnected from my feelings and my emotions that it didn't even register to me. What would that feel like if I saw my partner being with someone else? Right? I was just trying to be the awesome girl, trying to be the best girlfriend possible. And then so I'm also thinking, okay, well, he said yes, but we say yes to things all the time and don't actually do them. And then he's like, let's get on this app. Let's find this sex party. And I'm like, holy shit, this is happening. Right?
I'm trying to be the cool girl. I said yes, and now we're playing chicken.
Exactly. So what did I do? I became very distant and elusive and said all the right things, but did none of the right things. And then, of course, he's getting frustrated. He's like, why don't you want to do this thing with me? You said you wanted to do it. I'm putting in all the effort and you're not doing it. I'm like, oh, I'm just busy. Oh, I'm just that. Of course I want to do it. Not acknowledging I've got all these fucking feelings and maybe I just wasn't really ready for this thing that I was trying to be cool about and now it's alive and I'm like, oh my God, freaking the fuck out. And I can't tell you this because I want you to think that I'm the cool girlfriend. So much humanity.
I love your avoidance strategies too. Just oh yeah, I'll keep saying that I'm chill with it while melting down. I'm sure everybody listening has done something exactly like that in some way, shape, or form of yeah, of course I want to do that.
I love it. That seems like a great idea. And if you're listening and you think, no, I haven't done that, you just haven't looked hard enough. We've all done that. So anyway, this is going on for long enough and I finally have a week off work. So I'm not busy. There's no distractions. And
you mean excuses?
Exactly. No excuses. And he finds this party and I'm like, fuck, I have to go. Dun, dun, dun. So we go. We get in an Uber and we drive to this shady part of town and then get dropped off on this shady street.
Was it at someone's house? Was the party at someone's house or was it at a club?
It was in a residential neighborhood. And it was not a house, but it was probably like a house transformed into like a sex club place. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Purpose built.
Sorry. Yes. Purpose built. Yes, exactly. In a residential neighborhood that was a bit scary. And I'm already like trying to find ways out, right? So I'm like, I don't think this is the right place. I think we're lost. I think we should just go home. This isn't it. Yeah. I don't feel comfortable in this environment.
Pulling the Aussie in London card.
Totally. Exactly. This is too much for me. But I could never say that, right? So then, anyways, we find the thing. We go up to the stairs and the lady opens the door. She was amazingly sweet, but she was also, I'm going to call her elderly, right? She's elderly and she's like got on this like negligee. And I was just like, I didn't expect an elderly woman with her boobs all out to open the door. And I was just like, hi. Don't know what I'm thinking or feeling right now. But she was like a grandma, right? Like, come on in, loves. This is this and this is that.
Condoms are on the bench.
Exactly. Totally. If you squirt, just clean it up here. Oh my God, this is my grandma saying these things to me, right? Little did we know it was a greedy girls' night, which basically just means there's a shit ton of men and a few women who just want to play with a bunch of men at one time. That was not me. That is still not me, right? Especially not on my first time at this creepy looking event where now there's all of these men around. And it was not subtle. So they had like lines painted around the room. Like, if you want to be private, go on this side of the line and people can't encroach, yeah? But then there was like a glory hole room or a room with a bed and then a big window so you could watch on the other side. There was all these men I would describe as like leering at me because there was only 3 women at this whole event. And I'm there like, oh my God, like a deer in headlights. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I want to do. I feel very unsafe, but I can't tell my partner this. And so at some point I grabbed him and just went into this private room. I said, I just need to catch my breath. Unfortunately for me, it was a glory hole room. All of these men rushed into the wall and there's penises coming through and I was like, oh my God, get me out of here.
I'm imagining like a whack-a-mole situation, but it's dicks.
Exactly.
I'm glad you can laugh about what sounds like actually quite a traumatic experience.
Oh, yeah. I'm very resilient, luckily. But eventually I was able to say, I'd like to do something a little bit more private. I want to do something with you, but it needs to be private. And so we stepped on the other side of the white line. I sat on a bench, he sat in front of me, and I gave him a blowjob. During this time, another man came up and stood almost right behind my then partner on the other side of the line. And I was like, oh, I don't know what's happening. Does he like this? Do I like this? I'm not sure I'm comfortable, but I can't say anything. It was fucking horrendous. Fucking horrendous. But it started this ball rolling of, do you know what? I survived. There were some great bits and there was lots of learning to then be done. So it started this exploration of, okay, well, that event maybe wasn't for us, but what would be? So then over here, there's a really well-known one called Killing Kittens. Then we started down like Le Boudoir. So it started this exploration of there's more out there than we think that there is. And there's so much out there, so much that I don't even know. But that was my first time.
So was this your partner's first sex party?
Yes.
Or he had been... Okay, so both of you, first time, grandma greets you at the door, dicks everywhere, probably not the sensual, lovely, fun, playful experience you were hoping for. But we know that this has a happy ending because you've already, pun totally not intended, that you like sex parties now. So you've had some more positive experiences. So talk to us a little bit about how you've gone from that experience to this actually being something that you really enjoy and have made part of your life.
So my then partner and I carried on exploring with all of these experiences, and they were fun. Like once we found the right company and brand for us, they were fun. And I guess then so they were a fun experience while we're kind of having them, right? And then it was a fun debrief afterwards, what I would call a debrief. And then what I discovered is, and we had some very clear agreements. Yeah. So at that time, we were not to actually have sex with anyone else, right? We could play with people together, but we could not do things separately. And I could have sex with women, but not with men. Yeah. And then I had also said, I'm not really comfortable with you having sex with women, but you can check in with me and ask, how do I feel about that? At the time, I also wasn't really interested in other men. I now realize the places we were going to just didn't attract my kind of man. And I confused that with, oh, I'm just so in love with this one person, I can't possibly be sexually attracted to anyone else. Very untrue. But
It's just that they were serving the wrong flavor of ice cream.
exactly that. But what I discovered when we went to these events was the trust and connection that my partner and I had was like, it just grew every time, because we went to this thing together and we were so into, I want to look after you, right? I want you to have a great time, but equally, I want to have a great time too. And what does that mean for us? And we really started to build this trust of, every time someone would come up and say, oh, can I borrow your boyfriend, or can I do this with your girlfriend? And we just said, no, we only do this together. It was reinforcing the trust foundation of the relationship.
And the agreement that you'd made with each other.
Exactly.
About what was okay and what was not.
Yes, yeah. So, and I know this isn't true for all couples, but it was certainly a situation where it really enhanced the foundational pieces of our relationship. And then when that relationship ended, I was still like, I like the naughtiness of the sex parties and all those kinds of things. And so last year I started to get back into them, but I wanted to explore the different kinds. So I was like, let's go to a kink party. So I went to like a dominatrix event. Then I went to like a BDSM party just to see what kind of that was about. Then I started exploring with my now partner. We went to a party together, and I went to parties by myself. And what I love about them is it always brings up something new. There's always a new discovery about myself that I get from these situations. And so some things are like, I just know that I like to be really naughty and like be taboo and all these kinds of things, right? And so how do I get that? Sometimes I just fuck random strangers in a consensual and safe way. Yeah, like I'm never going to see you again. And we just did that real naughty thing. Like I don't even know your name, but who gives a shit? Yeah. And then I can come back and tell my partner about it. Or like, was it last week? I was at in a dungeon, and I went with a male kink friend of mine, and he put me over the spanking bench because I love to be on the spanking bench, and he's whipping me with something called a dragon tongue, right? And then he's flogging me with a flogger, and like I'm just like, yes, bruise up my booty because I want to sit down tomorrow and be like, oh, I did that thing last night. And then like another woman, she said, I'd like to try the pain stuff. Will you like go gently on me but introduce me to some pain? So then I'm domming her, and I'm like this woman that I don't even know, and her ass is right here, and that's sexy, isn't it? Yeah, so it's a great exploration. But interesting, Sammy, that you said sensual experience that I thought that I would have, because one of the things that I have discovered about myself is, for me, is my erotic blueprint. And I don't know if you guys have talked about this on the show.
We have not yet, but we are watching Gwyneth Paltrow's show about the sexual blueprint, and that there's 5 different archetypes. Is that
Exactly.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we know tip of the iceberg about this.
Amazing.
Tell us, do you know yours?
I do. So I have 2 that are very highly rated. So mine are energetic and sensual. Yeah. So that means that I need a bit of a build up to sex. I like the foreplay. I like the text early in the day, like, oh, I'm going to do this to you later, right? I like to think about what's happening. I like a scene, right? And then the sensual side of it is I want the music playing. I want a clean space. I want maybe candles. I want it to be like a bit dark and a bit mysterious. That's my sensuality. I like to be touched and stroked and all those kinds of things.
That's you.
Oh, I love
I'll have to take the quiz and find out.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So what I discovered by going to these kink events, and then I'm also like fairly kinky, but if I don't have energetic and sensual in place first, then I can't get to kinky, right? If something is just like in my face kinky, I'm a bit like, oh, that's too much for me. That's too much. But if I can build up through energetics and sensuality, then I can get to any kind of point that I want. And I only realized that through going to a kink sex party where I was so excited. Like I was about 6'5" in my thigh-high boots. I had like chains on. I had my partner on a collar and a leash, right? And I was leading him around for the night. And I just felt like the biggest fraud because I was like, what the actual fuck? None of this is exciting to me. I can't even think about what I want to do here. We're in this environment. It's meant to be like really fun and kinky. And I just don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I was overwhelmed. It was like pure definition of overwhelm. And then when I looked at that later, and after he and I spoke about it, because it was a very different experience for him. He loves the kink. He's all about it. He was like massively turned on. And there I am, like just shut down. And then so we talked about it afterwards, and I was like, do you know what? It was too intense too soon for me. There was no sensuality. There was no energetic build-up. It was just kink and sex in my face, and it was too much. But I wouldn't have discovered that without that sex party experience.
I think about like these kinds of experiences and like sometimes like the unconscious incompetence. Like I literally don't know what I don't know. And if I've never been to a French restaurant before, how would I even begin to comprehend if I do or don't like French food or the French dining experience, and how different that might be to going to a Chinese restaurant or Peruvian or whatever, Ethiopian? Like they're all very different, same, sex in different flavors. But I think like if you've not ever gone into an environment like that, you don't even know what you don't know, or you don't know what you might like until you maybe have an opportunity to try it. But then also being like, hey, I've gone to the really fancy fine dining a la carte banquet and that wasn't for me. Like I think that it's okay to go, I don't know, like tried it, didn't like it.
I like the cheap eat street food rather.
I want to sit on a plastic overturned milk crate instead. But I think like removing the judgment from what people like and what people don't like, I think a lot of that is just fear, right? Like if you've never been into a totally new thing, that it's just scary. So it's really cool that you've been able to have these experiences and learn more about what you like and what you enjoy. But I'd love to know, how has that influenced your relationship with yourself as you've got to know what you enjoy and get pleasure from?
So I feel like I would describe myself as like just a student of life, right? Like I'm very curious. I love to learn. I love to explore what's going on for me there. What's that about? Why do I feel that way? I love that shit. And so I've been on this like very proactive personal development journey for a good 5 years. And then the 5 years before that, a little bit less proactive, but still very much like I'm reading books all the time and exploring and all these kinds of things. And I really just feel like I'm only now just really starting to authentically get to who am I as a human right now. So I've done basically 10 years of work on myself, and I'm only just now like, oh, I think this is who I am. And that's like, I find that really exciting. I find it really empowering, because the more I know about myself, the more I can put in my boundaries, the more I can only pursue things that are really interesting to me. I can say no to things that aren't of interest. And I can spend time with like-minded people so I continue to grow. And I think that that's really important in the world that we live in today, because it's so fast-paced, it's so demanding, and there's so many distractions there for us to not get present to ourselves. So the fact that I am actively working on that, to know who I am and to really cultivate my best experience here, that feels very, very powerful. And then also another layer of power is the more I know myself and get clear on myself, I can hear myself better. So my own intuition, which is huge for a woman, huge for a human, my own intuition becomes clearer. My own inner guidance becomes clearer. And then my own manifestation power increases as well. So you asked about, do I have more friends that are operating in the same lifestyle space as me? I do, because I put that intentionality out there and it more readily comes back to me.
So Sarah Jane, do you have any practices or habits or rituals or anything that you do now, daily, weekly, monthly, to keep that relationship with yourself fueled up?
Yeah, I do. So
sex parties.
Well, I would call it social things every week, yeah, under that banner.
Social activities,
yeah. Fun. Yeah, so, I mean, as much as we just joked about that, that is one of the ways, right? Like, that's part of my lifestyle that I find enjoyable, that I find, like, expansive and just fun. So for me, that has to be happening on something of a regular basis. Maybe not every week, but every fortnight, or, you know, that kind of thing, maybe at least twice a month, whether that be like just a talk about polyamory that I was at about a month ago, or like a full-on dungeon party, which I was at last week. But that's definitely something that is regular in my diary. for myself, every day, so I use plant medicine. The one I am choosing to work with at the moment is called Harpe. So I use that every day as part of my meditation practice. And right now I'm about just over 2 weeks into what I'm calling a masculinity cleanse, but it's more of an energetic cleanse. So like I said, I really realized recently how much I put everyone else's needs above my own, to the point of I don't know what my needs are all the time. And then I put that responsibility of someone else meeting these unidentified needs. And then I get frustrated when they're not met. So this cleanse is about, all right, well, you're only going to spend time with yourself, no other male needs and all these kinds of things, and being really clear on, even if it's a female friend, do I really want to do that? How is this serving me? So that looks like no dates, no sex, self-pleasure practice. I do a self-pleasure practice at least once a week, which is also known as sex magic. But in this cleanse, that self-pleasure is happening more. And then also like the meditation with the plant medicine and journaling around that. So I journal every day, like getting connected to my body, getting connected to pussy, getting connected to what is it that I like sexually, and then in my real life as well. And then how do I articulate those needs? Hopefully that answered that question. That was a long-winded way.
No, there was some amazing things in there, like, but just masturbate more, connect with pussy.
Yeah.
I love that. Like, because sometimes we talk about like self-love and like self-pleasure and all those as a warm, fuzzy, kind of nice to have thing versus like something that that you actually need to reconnect with self, and prioritizing that. And sometimes that can be really hard. So I like that you're on a little
and
detox.
to understand your own body better and
Yes.
understand what you
absolutely.
like and what you don't like, and
Yep. And I think especially as women, right, like we've got a lot of shame around sex, right? Be sexual, but not too sexual and all these kinds of things. So, and then also give the responsibility to the man in the bedroom. Like, if I don't know what I like, how are you going to know what I like and meet those needs? Like, that doesn't make any sense, does it? And I remember last year when I started doing a practice or a ritual called sex magic, when I was doing the self-pleasure part and all that, I kept thinking, oh, this would be so much fun to do with my partner. And I was like, I've got to be the most fun person to be with, right? Like, I've got to be the one, like, right here, right now, if no one else was ever available, that I could fulfill all of my needs, especially my sexual needs. And I would imagine there's a lot of women who resonate with like that whole self-pleasure maybe feels a bit like, oh, I don't want to touch that, or I don't want to do that, or that's something that I only do with a partner. Like, if that's you giving responsibility away for your body and for your pleasure, right? If you can't articulate and go for what you want in the bedroom, like, where are you ever going to be able to do that?
Yeah, that opportunity to practice asking and requesting. Yeah. But also receiving. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been a really fun conversation. Let us take a peek behind the curtains into what you've discovered about yourself and your relationship with self and how you've done it and where you're at now. So thank you so much for letting us do that. To say thank you, we've provided a student in Indonesia with a week's worth of classroom education. The cool thing about this project is that the school is in Borneo, and quite often girls don't get the opportunity to go to school. So this project specifically brings girls into that education. And we know that when young girls grow up and they've had a higher level of education, they bring their community and country with them. So it has an incredible ripple effect. So thank you so much for making that possible.
Oh, amazing. Well, thank you guys for making that possible. That would certainly not happen without you guys. So thank you so much for allowing me to be part of that.
Oh, no worries. So Sarah Jane, if people want to connect with you or learn a little bit more about your story or a little bit more about you, how can they do that?
So I would say the best way, well, there's two ways actually. So my Instagram, which is @sexcoachsarahjane. But if you are going to reach out to me there, I would make it quickly and obvious where you're connecting from. As you can imagine with that kind of handle, I get a lot of messages I don't even bother to read.
Slide into Sarah Jane's DMs with little fuel tank, I reckon.
There we go.
Little fuel tank emoji, then she'll know where you came from.
Excellent, good. All right, if you got the fuel tank emoji, I know I'm going to open that one up. Excellent. Yeah. And then please don't also have a dick pic immediately after, okay?
No, we want consent, all right?
Exactly.
No more whack-a-mole.
No more whack-a-mole. Oh, Lord. Literally just like straight back there. Or a great email to get me on is Meet Miss Jane, and that is spelt Jayne, meetmissjane@gmail.com.
And Sarah Jane, what would you say is the thing that you are best at helping people with? if someone's got this problem, you're a rock star at solving it?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say helping people, so people who are curious and open-minded and maybe want to explore a little bit of the kinky side of things. I am really great at showing you how you can do that in a safe and supported way. So whether that's, I want to go to a kink party, how are you going to do that so it's emotionally and physically safe for you to do? So even if it's not the experience you want to have, you could be like, oh, do you know what? That wasn't right for me, but let me try something else, rather than being all traumatized from dicks in the wall. So I'm really great at like creating that open, non-judgmental space for people to really explore their kinks and then supporting them. Okay, well, how are we going to take that into your sex life and into your personal world?
Awesome.
Yeah,
so
amazing.
if any of that is resonating and you've got questions, please reach out to Sarah Jane and have a chat. But thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, amazing. Thank you, guys. It was really fun for me. Thank you.
Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating, because better relationships equal a better world.